Hello and welcome to 52%, the show that talks about everything and anything going on in Liverpool and beyond from the perspective of 52% of the population, women.
Yeah, and this time we're talking about women on both sides of the law. Here's what's coming up on today's programme. We're joined by Angela Murphy, who is the Executive Director of Tomorrow's Women Wirral, which is a service specifically aimed at supporting Merseyside's female offenders. Angela, tell us a little bit more about Tomorrow's Women, what you do there and how you support these women that are coming to you.
Okay, Tomorrow's Women is a charity that was set up in 2011. It was set up because of the way that women within the criminal justice system were being treated by the court and not fulfilling their obligations of the court. So we had to look at different ways of how we could get women and motivate women to get through their orders and complete their orders. So it was quite easily done, to be honest. I was approached, I'm a seconded member of staff from the probation service, and I was approached to see whether I wanted to work with women differently, which of course I did. Women are only 6% of the criminal justice system, so they are a minority. So if you can imagine a woman attending a generic probation office where the majority are men, it's not the best environment for a woman to come and address any issues that have led her to offend. So what we did, we went round to all the agencies on the Wirral, because we're based in the Wirral in Birkenhead, central Birkenhead, and asked whether they wanted to work differently with women. They did, because they were not reaching their targets either, because a lot of the women that we deal with and women who go through the criminal justice system have complex issues and therefore need to engage with different statutory agencies and voluntary agencies to address those issues. But given the complex nature of these women, they didn't. So we were looking at a more friendly environment that women would come to start addressing their issues. So what we decided was that we needed a female-only environment, and we could invite all the agencies on the Wirral to that environment. So in effect, it was a hub so that women could come in, address their issues, meet with the probation staff who we host within Tomorrow's Women, and hopefully get to the bottom of the issues that have led them to offend.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you must have, since starting this, you must have seen so many different stories, so many different lives. Are there any particular ones? I mean, obviously there's a lot you can't talk about, but is there any particular ones that you've kind of thought, do you know what, without this charity, we couldn't have done that?
Do you know what, every day you see progression. Every day you see women achieving, getting empowered, addressing their issues, and it's really good. I mean, I've got lots and lots of examples. I mean, for example, there was one woman who came to us quite late on in life. She'd committed an offence, as is the way with offences to do with benefits. It takes a while for it to go through the courts, and it took this lady 18 months to go through the courts, and during that period of time she became ill, mentally ill, you know, because she was looking it up on the internet to see what could happen to her, and you know. So anyway, she went through court and she was given a suspended prison sentence. And you know, women are quite often, and certainly before Tomorrow's Women became ingrained within the courts, within Wirral and certainly Liverpool Crown Court, women were probably looked at very differently when they offended, and quite often they were sentenced on two bases. That being, one, they're a woman and they should have been at home knitting and you know, doing food and you know, cooking and looking after the family, and the other one was that they'd committed this offence. And the criminal justice system is a system made by men for men, ideally. That's how it was. So women didn't fit neatly into it. So it's great now that the court have really got it. Merseyside Probation, well, it's Merseyside CRC and National Probation Service now. They understand that you have to treat women differently within the court system now.
Because that's one thing we did want to talk. We were all talking about it earlier, that we definitely feel somewhere women are treated differently within the criminal justice system. And is this something that you're doing here that you think might spread across the country?
Well, I think the National Probation Service and the CRCs across the country now, they're looking at women very, very differently within the custodial estates as well as within the community. And what we do know, this approach of working with women works. You know, women...
Yeah, you've achieved results that are measurable there.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, when we first started, completion rates for orders were 47.5%. They're now above 95% completion orders. So, and what we're there for, we're there to complement the work that the probation service does.
Absolutely.
Because, do you know, the Merseyside CRC and MPS are looking at sort of dealing with the actual offence issue, but we're dealing with the issues that have led them to offend.
Well, that's something we are going to touch on again in just a few minutes from now, OK? But tomorrow's Women Wirral does great work, as you can see already from Angela, with female offenders. However, there are other organisations in Liverpool that support both male and female offenders in a variety of ways. Gail visited Liverpool Waves of Hope, which is a support and mentoring programme, to find out a little bit more.
Liverpool Waves Hope is a big lottery funded service that's funded for the next 4 years, 5 years in total, and we're commissioned to work with the most complex and entrenched people in Liverpool. In terms of offenders, we do have quite a spectrum. So we have people who've got prolific offending, so where they may be offending either to fund a drug habit, or people who they may have a transient life living on the streets and they may need to either beg to get money for food or drink or what their other needs might be. And then we have people with more serious offending, so people who've had serious violent crimes, or people who may be Schedule 1 offenders. So quite a spectrum from prolific, intense, frequent offenders to people who've maybe done a serious offence and served a long time in jail. So if I could just give you an example of something that we've been doing recently, we've got a gentleman who accesses the service who over the past few years has committed 70 offences. So one of the innovations of the way we've been working is we've worked with the probation service and the prison. So we're able to meet him at the prison when he comes out, so he doesn't have a chance to use alcohol or drugs. So we take him from the prison gate to the probation and to the accommodation. And that's meant that he's less likely to repeat offend immediately. As I said, he's got a lot of offending over the past years, and 70 offences is quite a high number.
I've just recently got out of prison.
Okay.
And the reason I'm coming to this service is I've got a key baker here who's they help me with the accommodation, and I was passed on to this place, from a place called the Whitechapel. It's another homeless, who help homeless people, and because my key baker there has got other issues to deal with now, she passed me on to Waves of Hope. When you leave prison, you can't just live on the streets, or you've got to be in a hostel or some kind of residence. I'm not allowed to go in town, so I can't go sit anywhere in the city itself or the outside of it. I've got to, up here, I'm okay up here because it's LA's. So the day I got out, they picked me up at prison. They helped me with, get me benefits reinstated. And at the moment I'm just waiting to hear from another hostel, which is more better for me because it's away from the city a bit.
Yeah. Okay.
So the more closer I am to the city, the more likely I am to go into the city. It's just like a cycle. You know what I mean? Jail is not a deterrent no more. Despite what people may say, that prison is not a deterrent no more. You know what I mean? It's not like prison used to be. You didn't have TVs in prison when I first went to prison. Now you've got TV and all mud cons.
We use a psychologically informed environment approach at Liverpool Ways of Hope. So one of those things is about people being able to take responsibility for their own actions and managing relationships and the kind of language that we use with people. these people that we're working with, they've been let down by services, they've been excluded, barred. So when they come to us, it's kind of a new experience for them that you know, we are able to tolerate more behaviours, and when they leave a service maybe because of behaviour, those relationships that they built with the support worker there, they end, but with us we can follow them all throughout the city, all through the system, so our continuity of support is there with them. If we look at people's needs, one of the first things that they need is a safe place to stay, and if people don't have a safe space, then it generally makes all the other needs in their lives much worse. For example, how we can help with offending is we can place them in an area that doesn't contravene any of the community orders. For example, if somebody's got an asthma in a certain area, then it wouldn't make sense to accommodate them there. So, as a accommodation provider in that sense, and especially in the care and support area that I work for Riverside, that's definitely something that we can help people with by placing them in an appropriate setting.
Welcome back. On this episode, we're talking women on both sides of the law and the people who work alongside them, including our guest, Executive Director of Tomorrow's Women, Wirral, Angela Murphy. Guys, we just watched quite a strong piece there, and the ex-offender made a point which I found quite moving on how, you know, prison has all mod cons, including TVs.
And it's not working. It's not a deterrent as
It's
far
not
as
a
he's
deterrent.
He
concerned.
wanted to go back there, wasn't it?
Well, he almost was selling it to us.
I know.
He was
Well,
quite
how do
happy.
you find that women relate to
Well,
prison
I
life?
personally think it's very different for women. When women are sentenced to custody, you look at the female custodial estates, they're always far out. There's not many within the country. The prison that the women in our area go to is Style. And from where we're based, that's 2 buses, 2 train journeys. It's a long way.
Yeah.
Women don't get visits, very rarely get visits when they're in custody. So they're very isolated, yeah. I mean, what in my experience, a man who's sentenced to custody, his family, normally a woman, will rally round and there's a visit and they go and visit and take wherever, you know. But for a woman, it's very, very different. And the consequences of a woman being sentenced are, you know, she may lose her property, she may lose her children.
Yeah.
You know, there's lots of different sort of consequences to a woman being sentenced to custody.
Don't Style have a mother and baby unit, if that's the right phrase?
They do, yeah.
So she could take her children with her?
They can't up to a certain age. As soon as they reach that age, the child is then taken away.
So
Yeah.
what if
So
she's
can you imagine the emotional health, the effect on the health that's going to have?
What if she's a single parent or the sole carer of the child, and obviously for one reason or other she's ended up in custody, or she is, you know, going to end up custody? What would happen in that case? Because I think reverting back to men, it'd be a case of, oh well, everyone will be all right because the woman will have them, and that's. I mean, it's you still can't get away from that, can you? Even
it's
now,
approximately 6% of children stay within the family home. That's 6%. That's very low, isn't it? You know.
What happens to the other?
They go
94?
into social care.
Really?
Yeah.
even if the family are requesting them for them to go back. I mean, surely with the rehabilitation, providing, you know, it's not something that's going to affect them bringing the children up. Surely the fact that they can then be reunited with their children is the one thing that is going to help them along their steps to rehabilitation.
And
More
that
so a
happens.
woman than a man, I'm quite sure I can sit out there and say that.
It just depends on the offence. I mean, generally speaking, you know, I know that social care try to get as many children housed within the extended family as possible. And you're right, it's a motivator for the woman to come outside and to
You don't want to
start
come out and
to
have to fight
change.
for your child,
No,
do you?
no. And it does, you're dead right, it depends on the offence. A lot of the time it's just a temporary care that's needed while the woman is in custody. But it depends on the offence, as you say.
So what age are they able to take the children into custody with them?
I'm not 100% of what it is now, but I know it used to be up to about 12 months old, 18 months old.
Oh,
And
so
then the
it's
child
still
went.
babies
Yeah,
then?
yeah, we're talking about.
I'm sorry, you're thinking like 16
before
or
school
something.
age
Yeah.
then.
It's I mean,
Before school
it would not
age.
be right to take a child into a prison environment.
Oh, absolutely
Yeah,
not.
yeah,
No,
so,
no,
yeah.
of course not.
I mean, how sometimes it can almost be glamorised a bit. I mean, I remember growing up watching Cell Block H and being terrified of Queen Bee with the presser, you know, one of those. But I think
Orange
even
is
now
the
they
New
sort of,
Black as
well,
well.
exactly,
Yeah.
Orange is the New Black. And even when they redid the Cell Block H, it was almost all these
Still
glamorous women, and it was almost like it was glamorising it slightly, but it's totally
Absolutely
nothing
not,
like
no.
that. And
Tomorrow's women are there to prevent women going to custody. It's a sentencing option, so that the magistrates now have something else to sentence women with instead of going to custody. Because part of their order, the court order, would be that they have to address the issues that have led them to offend.
Of course.
Yeah. So that's what we're there for. We don't want women going to custody.
because that's sort of
It's
the downward towards the
absolutely.
slope there,
But
isn't
The
it?
effects on the children are,
Yeah.
it's just perpetuating the cycle,
And the
surely,
effects on the
isn't
women.
it?
Well, we're
I mean,
assuming that these
yeah.
are women with children. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's
Well,
women that
there's
offend
plenty of
without
women that
children.
do, yeah.
So it's the effects
Yeah.
on women in general, isn't it?
We are very lucky having Style Prison. Style Prison have really taken rehabilitation on, and they do great work with women and prepare them for coming out. And we continue that journey, you know, so we're sort of bridging a gap.
It's an ongoing programme.
Yeah.
almost.
Yes.
What are the what are the sorts of general causes that you find? Are the things that come back and back and back as the tend to be the context and the causes for women to
For
end
women
up
to offend.
offend, yeah.
Most women who go through the criminal justice system, when you analyse each case, most of them have been a victim in the past themselves.
Right.
And those issues have never been addressed. And therefore it goes on, it affects the mental health. It could be alcohol and drugs that are related to deal with the issues that they're carrying through their lives, you know. But so generally speaking, most women who offend are victims themselves.
Do they find this then is a sort of opportunity to address some of those issues?
Absolutely.
Right.
And
okay,
let
great.
me explain to you about the charity. It's approximately 9 to 10% of the women who come to Tomorrow's Women are women within the criminal justice system.
So they're known. They're
So
known
it's
already.
all women who live on the Wirral have to attend Tomorrow's Women to engage with their offender manager. Whilst they're there, it's our job, Tomorrow's Women's job, to engage them in everything that's going on. We have a timetable, Monday to Friday, full of every issue that you can imagine that women need to address, starting from self-esteem, confidence, going through to budgeting. You know, we have solicitors in, we have maths and English, so we're doing basic education with them as well. We do lots of crafts, which are brilliant for emotional well-being, mental health. So there's lots of issues that we can address with the women engaging with us. So if only 9 and 10% of those women who are women who are within the criminal justice system. The rest of the women who come to us are women who could be on the periphery of crime, or could be women who just want to be who they want to be and have never been given that opportunity to do it.
And it's a bit like a sort of a safe place in some
It's
ways.
a safe
isn't it, to
haven.
come into.
Domestic abuse is massive. It is massive, and it's the root cause for an awful lot of emotional, physical illnesses within women in our society. You know,
And
so-
does that in turn lead them to then commit a crime?
It can do. And that's what's good about Tomorrow's Women, because it's about integrating women who have committed crimes with women who haven't, women who've gone down the mental health route, women who haven't. But what they do, they share the skills and experiences with each other, and they learn from each other.
As only women can.
Like sitting round having a
Yeah.
chat,
Yeah.
you know. I mean, we're brilliant at giving advice. We don't always,
don't always take
take
it.
Do as I say, not as I do.
but we're really, really good at giving advice, you
Solve the
know.
world's problems over a cup of tea, a woman.
absolutely.
Really could.
Because you've got that fantastic case study on your website, haven't you? About the woman who went to Style and now she's in full-time employment.
She's in full-time employment,
Which is
and she's a
amazing.
trustee as well now.
Really?
Of our organisation, yeah. So,
That's phenomenal, isn't
We've
it?
got 2 women who've come through our process who are trustees. And that's really important because, you know what, they've got lived experience.
Yeah, we can't possibly imagine
No,
what it must
absolutely.
be
And
like,
I
can we?
think one
So.
thing that Lisa touched on earlier was the fact that, do you think prison for a woman is more of a deterrent than it is for a man? Do you know what I mean? It's sort of more, like he was saying, it was almost like a luxury.
Absolutely, yeah. But I don't know what it actually does with regard to helping the woman, certainly with regard to their emotional well-being. I think there's other ways, and I think it can be done more cost-effectively and more successfully within the community.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, there's got to be other ways of
If
solving
there's
your
a risk
problems
of
out than
harm,
crime.
if there is a woman who is a risk of harm to the public, yeah, there's got to be a punishment factor. I fully understand that, but she needs the interventions put in place to support her for when she's released.
And it prevents reoffending as well, which again is the same. You're talking about costs.
Yeah.
It's,
It costs £60,000 a year, £60,000 when a woman reoffends. So if we can prevent women from reoffending, how much more money is going to be available within our society?
Do you find there's a particular age group that offends for women?
No, and it is surprising. You know, we only work with women aged 18 plus, and I think the oldest lady that we've got on our referral system at the moment is 86. Now, I'm not saying that they've all offended, but you know, they're certainly there to improve their lives, and who's to say that they might not have offended? There's, you know, you can't put a label on someone and say that's an offender. You can't. You know, it's someone who commits an offence. I mean, speeding tickets. You know, you can break it down. You can break it down to anything. But our society, what our society does is label.
We're very judgmental.
We do away with that. Women who come into
neatly.
Tomorrow's Women are women.
Yeah.
And we all have good days, bad days. You know,
Women
and it's how we deal
shoplift
with
because
it.
they're having a bad time of the month.
Yeah.
That, do you know what I mean? That's the type of thing that you hear people saying. You go, what? But it's so true, isn't it?
Yeah, absolutely.
It really is. And it's just, I mean, something I think we'll probably speak about a little bit later is we were talking about it earlier on about how you're more shocked when women commit a very big crime.
Do you know who else is also shocked? The woman herself. She can't believe she's got herself into that situation, you know. Women generally tend to be first-time offenders and then don't offend at all. Unless there's a few sort of prolific offenders who shoplift because they've got addictions, because they haven't had their issues dealt with previously. But generally speaking, most women are first-time offenders.
It's the shame factor, isn't it? You don't expect that from a woman.
But imagine how far that woman's been driven to offend. Because we all know what's right and wrong.
Well,
you know?
we'll come back again to that very, very soon because this is something we really want to talk about. We'll have to pause for just a moment though, but we will see you after the break. We're going to be visiting some criminal defence lawyers to find out a little bit more about women and the criminal justice system. We think we've learnt a lot from Angela today. There's still a long way to go. Welcome back, and on this episode we're talking about women on both sides of the law, and so we sent Gael to have a chat with James Murray Solicitors to find out about women and justice.
James Murray Solicitors is one of the biggest law firms in the Northwest. I met with Mark Ellis and Mel Tomlinson, both duty solicitors, to find out exactly what is their job about.
What that entails is going to court to represent people who have obviously committed an offence, and I also end up going to the police stations, and sometimes as well I go to the Crown Court to help counsel when we've got a big case on. Okay.
Well, I'm just following in Mel's footsteps, really. I'm just going to say exactly the same thing. We do slightly different things in the sense that I do a lot of motoring law. We're both advocates and we both go to court day in, day out. And as Mel rightly says, you know, we go to police stations and we go to the Crown Court and represent people there. And it's a very, very demanding job. And we've all got different skill sets. So Melanie's, I hope she doesn't mind me saying this, but Mel's skill set is very much dealing with certain types of offences where people need almost a social worker to represent them, and Mel's very, very good at that, far better than I would ever be. So I do a lot of sort of motoring law and that sort of thing. So we dovetail very well. We've sat in the same room since I was 7. No. Not quite right, but we're a great little team anyway.
I've always wanted to do criminal law. When you do your training contract, you end up doing areas of other law. I ended up doing conveyancing, which is obviously dealing with property sales, buying and selling of houses. And I did a little bit of family law, but my passion's always been helping people who've committed criminal offences. And it really is interesting because you don't know, each day can be different and you meet a wide variety of people.
According to a 2011 report from the Law Society, there are more and more women working as solicitors, and women are doing better than men in law schools, obtaining higher degrees in law courses. Yet, a research from the Law Society of Scotland was published this summer showing a pay gap between men and women up to 42% in favour of men.
I think it's now changing. I think from when I first qualified, there has been a change in attitudes. When I first started, obviously, there was some of the older solicitors, you could find them being quite sort of like sexist, or I did find it could be quite a male environment. But obviously now more of those people are retiring or are no longer in the legal profession, and the young generation, I don't think there's any more of a problem than what there used to be. I know from when I first qualified, some of the things that did happen to me could be, you know, like I did receive quite a lot of sort of like male attention, and some of it could be quite daunting, but I just got on with it and just sort of like put it down as a joke, put it down as a laugh, and I actually think it's built me into the person I am. It's character building rather than anything, but I don't think you find that anymore, because obviously people are changing, views are changing, people's attitudes.
What's your point of view about this?
I think Mel's absolutely right, I think, and it helps in the environment that we have to work. You've got to have a pretty tough skin, and you know, Melanie's developed that over the years. And I can remember when Melanie first came on the scene, and when you were training solicitor at another firm, and she put up with a great deal. Not so much anything that was sexist, but she did receive a lot of unwarranted attention, because it was almost, she was the exception really in what was predominantly a man's world. But the stats that you've just thrown into the interview are really interesting. So I think you would look at the same stats that I've looked at, which is the Law Society, which is in essence our governing body, have said that since 1993, more than half of the new entrants into our profession are women. So you knew that, didn't you? So that's, you know, that's really intriguing. So, and it's a good thing that there were more women. But you're absolutely right again. It's how much women are being paid, and there should be total equality. There shouldn't be any difference at all.
And like, because we've got our family department, it's mainly females. Also in our civil litigation, again, it's a lot of females. Yeah. I think the only exception is our criminal department, because there's only myself and another female who do crime. And I think the reason why is criminal can be quite an antisocial job, and especially if you've got young children or you've got a family, sometimes you can find it quite difficult to juggle, because especially if you have to go to the police station of an evening, it can be difficult trying to juggle at home, your home life, and obviously then having to go to the police station and then still having to get up to do the school run. And I think that's why some women might decide that they don't necessarily want to do crime, but would choose another area where they don't have that pressure.
That was a great piece. I don't know what any of you guys saw from that, but I saw some body language from the gentleman.
I felt that she was being careful about what she said, because he was there, and I felt that that was why he was there, to make sure she towed the company line.
Just watching over her, wasn't it? Yeah, really subservient to him.
It's interesting how, whether or not, I mean, we're talking about something that we don't know concretely, but interestingly, it did look like a subtle policing of behaviour.
Good choice of words.
Yeah, very subtle, and that happens, doesn't it? That does happen in our society. You can find that happening between sort of like when you've got male and female company. Sometimes when you've got to present a public face, you know, and clearly an interview like that, you know, the solicitors are presenting a public face. You know, so the guys come along to check that the public face is okay. You know, that's sort of what it looks like.
But she's clearly good at her job. You know, he trusts her to do the job. Even though she sat there with, I'm going to assume it's her boss.
I would have thought so.
Well,
she said her piece.
Partner, so
she said her piece.
But that's interesting, isn't it?
Yeah,
I've made that assumption.
Do you have to deal?
And sat back.
Yeah, sorry. Do you have to deal a lot with the lawyers and police and things?
We do.
In general?
On our timetable, we have solicitors in with us 4 or 5 times a week. Each day, you know, we have some lawyers available for women if they need any support.
And again, are these male or female lawyers?
Female. Everyone who comes into Tomorrow's Women is female. Yeah. So at the Fabulous, they're really, really good partners for us. The police are excellent. We have a police drop-in. And again, it's broken down all sorts of barriers. Women are very comfortable speaking to police. Again, it's female police officers who come in, you know. But it's great because I think it's important that there's a safe environment where they can speak to these people, you know, and get the support that's needed.
It's interesting to hear that you say the police come in. Just out of interest, do they come in uniform? How is that barrier broken down?
When we first started off, we were saying, oh, would you mind taking the uniform off? So we don't want there to be any barriers. And they did. They used to take their epaulets off and take the radio off and everything. But now they come in the uniform, and I think that's great because, you know what, we need police in our society. The police are there to protect us.
Yeah. It would have been great to have had a comment from the police today, but unfortunately, as I'm sure you're all aware, the police are actually at a colleague's funeral today, so we're not able to give any comments from the police. I'm sure they would have if they could, though. Our deepest condolences go out to the family, of course.
I mean, we mentioned it earlier, and I know this is one thing that Maisie's been.
I was on a rant.
She's on a rant.
I was on a rant.
Tell you what, sit back. We've
Here we
spoke
go.
about women and crime, and I think we've all said between us as well that as a woman, you're almost more taken aback when it's a real heinous crime. You know, we're talking like Myra Hindley, Rose West. It's worse as a... Go on, Maisie, this is your floor.
What I find interesting is not that it is worse. It's awful whether it's male or female. But that we have a moral compass that, for women, we have a stronger moral compass than we do for men.
Yeah, we're held
And
to
that
a higher account.
Yeah, and that men seem to be forgiven their moral misdemeanours more readily than women's moral misdemeanours. And you can think about those really high-profile cases and how monstrous Hindley was portrayed. You know, Hindley was portrayed as being monstrous, and indeed that the crimes were monstrous. But Brady was monstrous. But the one that we remember, the one that we you know, sort of pillory more than was Hindley. And indeed, she was 19 years old when all that started. He was about 26. He was Svengali-ish. He did a lot of grooming, which does not take away her decision-making processes. And it doesn't mean that it's a lesser crime for her, but we make it more of a crime. But we make it more of a crime. Now, that's sort of interesting. All I'm advocating is that we have the same moral compass, not a different moral compass.
You expect more of women. I find even in my children, I've got a boy and I've got a girl. The girl's younger. I expect more of her. I'll still tie his shoelaces for him going to football because I'm soft. But her, she wouldn't dream of asking me because she's so independent. And I wouldn't dream of doing it to her because it'd probably insult her. But I genuinely think women expect more of women. You find that often when somebody loses a partner, men do marry quite quickly after their partner's died. Do women? Generally not, because women are like, you know, I can probably handle this.
Women expect more from women. The whole of society
The whole
does.
society, it's a whole society. But that does mean then that when women have a misdemeanour, that we are creating a context in which we are asking them to be harder on themselves than a man in that context, you know? And consequently, it was interesting earlier that you said that women tend to reoffend the once, and there's a lot that, you know, you get first offenders, and that many of them then, through that moral compass, if you like, don't reoffend in quite the same stats.
Yeah,
you know,
absolutely, that's right.
So I mean, it's just an interesting thing. Personally, I just want equality. I want the same moral compass.
Yeah.
Either we raise the moral compass for men or we lower the moral compass for women, and we're just more forgiving and give people second chances, you know, and people second chances.
I mean, it's so important that we give people second chances. Everybody's got a right to learn from a mistake. You know, and I think our society now is getting better at that. You know, I think, you know, when you look around and you look at the third sector organisations, there's a lot more people who are there to assist now.
Angela, can I just stop you there and say thank you? What you're doing is fantastic. We love Tomorrow's Women. It's a really, really motivational name for a group as well. We'll be back after the break to carry on the talk about the police because it's coming up in What's Trending, bizarrely enough. See you after the break. Welcome back. In this episode, we've been focusing on women and the criminal justice system. But as usual, we're changing the subject for the next couple of minutes, and it's time for our favourite part of the show, What's Trending, where we take a look at what's recently been going on in and around the world. Now, Twitter.
Good
And
old
football. Twitter, football, Merseyside police. Need I say any more?
I think you do need to explain
yeah,
what happened
okay,
here.
so I was at the game myself yesterday watching Everton, and they thrashed Sunderland up the toffees, brilliant result. However, does that mean that Merseyside police, unfortunately, can then carry on some banter referring to Sunderland's defeat as a rape, and they were indeed caught with their pants down? Do we expect this from our police? Do we expect them to carry on this banter?
The word rape shouldn't be part of banter, full stop.
Does it undermine?
Absolutely, it diminishes the power of the word. And to compare two teams that have come together voluntarily in competition, one's going to lose, one's going to win. You can't compare that in any shape or form to a rape.
It's almost like making light of it.
It is, isn't
I mean,
it?
do you know what? I always try and look at things devil's advocate, try and look at things both way. And, you know, the police get a lot of stick, they get a load of it. So there's probably somebody sat there and thought, do you know what? Probably an Evertonian as well, probably sat there and thought, let's have a little bit of banter. And probably never set out to cause the offence it's caused. Probably not sat there and taken the enormity of the word rape. Actually, Scouse humour, we're all known for it. Come back with a little bit of banter, but it shouldn't have come from the police.
No, indeed.
Would
it
it
shouldn't have
surprise you
done.
to know that it was a bloke, a Merseyside police man,
No,
not
it
a
wouldn't.
woman?
It wouldn't. And the fact that a word that is actually about it's about a power relationship, is used in that context, you know, and the police who have been probably undergoing a whole program of awareness training in terms of what rape means, can suddenly make this and completely make light of what is an abominable offence, actually.
I mean, we don't know who's done it from Merseyside Police. We know that the original tweet came from a man. We do know that. And no doubt whoever it is will be in serious trouble. But you've touched on such a right point there. Even in my job at the radio, we have yearly legal courses and we're constantly told don't put anything on any of your social media that you wouldn't say on air. Because then that covers everything, doesn't it? You know, if you don't think, if you wouldn't open your mouth and say it on the radio, then, but surely the police, like you said, have had this training. Yeah, you shouldn't have to do that. You know, we were talking earlier about with Angela about having police there down at the Tomorrow's Women because they're pillars of society. I try and say to my kids, if they see a policeman, you have to have respect for the police. But
why?
Have they got? Because I think I just think that's something that when you grow up, they have to have respect for people in authority, because that's a whole other point. But I genuinely think that if you don't have respect for people in authority, that is where the world is going wrong. It really is, and we were always grown up to do that.
In an ideal context, of course.
Yeah, of course.
And we do need things like the police force, etc. But then, of course, if you're in the police force, you have to recognise that you are in some ways you are in a relatively privileged position. You are an example to society, and as an example to society,
of course,
you shouldn't be somehow almost condoning rape by using it within that type of context. Because in that type of context, as you say, that two teams have come together consensually, knowing it's a competition, knowing that one's going to win or lose or come to a draw, and that they all know the rules of the game. Rape is about absolutely when someone, usually women, but sometimes men, suddenly do not know the rules of the game. Because there is a power in that context in rape where another section control the rules of the game.
Suffice
rape.
to say then, one thing we don't make jokes about ever is rape, ever.
Yeah.
Just the whole word about it and everything.
What have you been looking at, Claire?
Well, it was actually, you were going to have a look at Kathy, weren't you? You've been looking at Mexican TV.
Mexico,
Why?
yes.
What's been going on there?
Yes. Well, at the TV programme, 2 presenters, a man and a woman. The woman's standing there. And for some reason, what she's wearing has got something to do with this as well, because she was wearing a vest-style top, so apparently showing too much. Anyway, I digress there. She's trying to present, and he's next to her, and he's fawning over her, and he's saying offensive sexual innuendo. And she's trying to bat his hands away while she's continuing presenting.
So this is on air, isn't it?
On air, yes. And then he grabs her breast. On air.
On air.
Now, the TV station have since said it was a stunt by the two of them to make it go viral.
She stormed off, though, didn't she? She actually took a microphone off and stormed out saying, "I can't work in this condition. I can't work in this condition."
That's not a stunt.
But then they jointly released a YouTube or a video that showed them saying it was a stunt. But since then, she's come out and said it wasn't. She was told to say that. So she's been manipulated. She's been
twice.
From every angle,
sexually
isn't it?
assaulted.
Has he been sacked?
On TV? They've both been sacked, the 2 of them.
What did she do wrong? Apart from stand up for herself?
She wore something far too sexy, apparently.
Oh, so that's all right to be mauled in public.
Yes,
for that
yes,
reason. We must remember
it's an
that.
invitation.
Yeah, of course it does. It's all going round in a big circle.
She was sexually assaulted live on TV.
And how many witnesses saw that?
Gazillions.
And she got the sack.
Yes.
If she went to the police with that over sexual assault, what are the police going to do? Turn around and say, "Well, sorry, love, it's your own fault for what you're wearing." But, you know,
And she invited it.
You know, it's not as if she was wearing, you know, a pair of pasties or whatever you call it. If she was wearing...
But that's
not the point,
There's
is
a whole debate, I think, isn't there now at the moment within the Mexican society. You know, the president, there's a woman who's in a very high-ranking position. The various women have come out and said, you know, this is precisely what is the problem with our society, and we need to start debating these issues more. You know, so it's an appalling thing that's happened. But if something good, comes out of that, and if it raises the profile of that of women facing sort of like, you know, sexual assaults of various degrees within Mexican society, you know, and it starts to change that for women, then, you know, hopefully it will be a cloud with a silver lining.
Is it not the same across the world with female TV presenters? I mean, all with Dancing on Ice, with Holly Willoughby, with Willabooby, you know, with their I mean, Philip Schofield wouldn't have skated on out there and grabbed her boobs, would it? It just, you know, it just wouldn't have happened. But there's such pressure for women to be that sexy on television.
Young as well. You know, we've had issues with the BBC and other TV companies firing presenters on TV once they hit a certain age mark.
The older woman.
Yes.
What have you not noticed on a particular cable channel that shows sports? That a lot of the sports are presented by women. Now, you don't see a lot of women presenting sports, but it's becoming quite popular now to have women presenting sports shows, because it's still sex sells. And we're talking of women of a particular age. They're all, you know, more than reasonably attractive. They're all very well groomed. You don't associate women with sports, but they're using women to sell the sport because it's making it more sexy.
It would be nice to get out of that box, wouldn't it? It'd be nice to be seen as a fully rounded human being. It would be nice to be seen as, you know, just a person, and not the labels that are attached to you, you know, in that respect. Whereas actually it tends to be, I mean, nowadays we do, men are probably more sexualised in context than they used to be, actually. But still, that idea of personhood in and of itself is much more something that we attach to men than we attach to women.
I'll tell you one thing that's caught my eye this week is the IVF story, which is obviously the NHS are looking for cutting funds, and one of the areas that they've looked at is Essex. Now, again, you have to look at both sides of it, don't you? Essex is generally known as a quite wealthy area, and how many families have you seen struggle and save to go through IVF because they can't get it funded? Is that right, though, just because of the postcode you live in, to say, all right, well, you're not entitled to have a kid? You know, it's very difficult, isn't it?
In terms of postcode, I think it should be, you know, whatever decision is made by those on high, it should be countrywide. You can't...
Perhaps if you earn a certain amount a year, if they say, well, hang on, if you're in excess of earning this, then yes, you are entitled to NHS. But it does seem unfair that perhaps if you're somebody who's tried and tried for years and you just so happen to live in Essex, all of a sudden, you might live in the best part, that postcode mightn't affect you, that all of a sudden, well, we're not interested in you now, you go and sort yourselves out. You're having children.
You're messing with nature, and then there's that whole thing, I mean, I'm fortunate, I've got 2 beautiful children. If you can't afford to pay for your IVF, or can you afford to have children? I know it's not a direct consequence, but where do you draw the line? You're taking money from, cancer patients. I mean, it's a tough one.
I actually don't know what I think about the whole IVF thing, and I'll be absolutely honest, I don't, because I think underneath all of that, there are a whole load of social questions. Yeah. One of the things, though, that for me just comes up about the IVF thing is the reduction in funding for the National Health Service. Full stop. Yeah. And it obviously it happens that somebody's had to make that choice in IVF in that area of the country. But for me, that's one of those major issues, is that suddenly, all that funding is being taken away from people, and it will be being taken away from much more vulnerable people as well.
Well, tell you what, I think we need a spin-off show from today, don't we? Everything we've gone to, well, that's the subject for another day. Well, that is all we've got time for, unfortunately. Many thanks to our guest, Angela. She was with us earlier. Also to Maisie, to Kathy. Lovely Lisa. And we'll... Oh, yeah. Can't thank myself, can I? We'll see you all again next time.